Firelight Dialogues, Volume 1, Number 7, Prophets, Poets, and Visionaries. Welcome to Firelight Dialogues. I'm your host, Pat Kansor. Every age has its storytellers. Every culture has its messengers. Every people has its voices that rise above the noise and remind us who we are and who we could be. Today we gather around the fire to honor the prophets, poets, and visionaries, the ones who felt the pulse of the world before the rest of us did, the ones who lived half in this world and half in another. As always, this is a place of conversation, not confrontation. Take what you need, leave the rest, live and let live. And as we journey through today's stories, keep asking, where is the life lesson in this? Pull your seat closer to the fire, and let's begin. We are listening to the universal messenger. Long before prophet meant a person predicting the future, it meant someone carrying insight. The Sumerians had the En, the inspired priest king, who communicated the will of the gods. Egypt had the Heka masters, ritual poets who shaped reality with sound. The Indo-Europeans had the bards, memory keepers, whose verses held the histories of entire peoples. In the Hebrew world, prophets were not fortune tellers. They were ethical firebrands, calling people back to justice and balance. And among early Christians, visionaries like John of Patmos wrote cosmic poetry that echoed with symbols and riddles. Across cultures, prophets and poets shared a simple truth. They spoke when others stayed silent. They saw meaning where others saw chaos. And they reminded humanity that wisdom is not static, it's alive. Let us start in the Celtic world and their bards. The bard wasn't just a poet. They were a living library, a keeper of the tribe's identity. Through story, song, and rhythm, they preserved the victories, failures, myths, and moral codes of the people. In a world without books, the bard was the book. Their magic wasn't prophecy. It was the ability to shape the future by preserving the past. And the life lesson here? The stories you remember become the stories you live. The Hebrew poets showed that truth had a cost. Now let's move east to the ancient Near East. In Hebrew tradition, prophets like Amos, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Deborah, and Micah were not mystics floating through visions. They were disruptors, truth tellers, voices that confronted injustice, corruption, and spiritual decay. They spoke to kings who didn't want to listen, to people who didn't want to change, to societies teetering on the edge. Their message was simple: return to balance, return to compassion, return to integrity. They were less fortune tellers and more moral architects, and they remind us of another timeless truth. Sometimes the hardest wisdom to hear is the wisdom that we already know. Let's pause for a moment. Think of the people in your life who have spoken truth. Not always comfortably, not always easily, but meaningfully. A teacher, a grandparent, a friend, a stranger who said just the right thing at just the right time. Sometimes the prophets and poets in our lives don't call themselves prophets or poets. They simply help us see. Now we'll step into the world of visionary mystics, those whose eyes drifted beyond the horizon of ordinary sight. In Persia, Zarathustra saw the universe as a moral landscape, every choice tipping the scales of cosmic balance. Among the Desert Fathers and Mothers of early Christianity, visions were not hallucinations, but messages from the quiet place where the soul touches the eternal. In the Gnostic tradition, visionaries described layered heavens, hidden truths, inner sparks of divinity. In the Slavic and Germanic worlds, seers, folkvi, volve, vitki, used trance, symbol, and intuition to reveal guidance and insight. What unites them? They understood that wisdom often arrives through silence, and insight requires stillness. Mystics taught humanity that truth isn't always logical. Sometimes it's intuitive, symbolic, and poetic. There is a special category of visionary, those whose poetry becomes scripture, those whose art become revelation. The Egyptian poet priests wrote hymns that shaped the nation's ethics. The Psalms blend emotion, art, and spiritual philosophy. The Rig Veda is a tapestry of poetic truth. The Tao Te Ching is a poem that became a worldview. And Rumi's verses still reach across centuries and cultures. All of them understood something that modern society often forgets. The heart understands in metaphor what the mind cannot grasp in logic. Poetry is prophecy, because poetry speaks the language of the soul. The prophets, poets, and visionaries weren't perfect. They weren't superhuman. They weren't always comfortable, agreeable, or easy to understand. But they all carried the same core message. Wake up! Pay attention! There's more to this world than you're seeing. Their purpose wasn't to tell people what to think, but to invite them to think more deeply. Their purpose wasn't to predict the future, but to prevent disaster and preserve wisdom. Their purpose wasn't to control, but to reveal. And maybe the life lesson for us is this: you don't need a title to be a prophet. You don't need fame to be a poet. You don't need visions to be a visionary. You just need openness, courage, and awareness. You just need to listen to the world and speak truthfully about what you hear. As we close today's dialogue, I want you to ask yourself, who are the prophets, poets, and visionaries in my life? And what truth am I being called to speak? Every tradition teaches that wisdom isn't confined to temples or texts. It lives in people, those who listen deeply and those who dare to speak. Take what you need from today's stories, leave the rest, live and let live, and keep asking, where is the life lesson in this? Thank you for joining me by the fire. I'm Pat Kansor, and this has been Firelight Dialogues. I look forward to seeing you in episode 8.